Yeah, so I'm here with Anne Jamison. Thanks for coming out to our podcast studio, and I'm just glad you liked it, right? As soon as you got here, it's like, these are the new chairs. This is a cool format. Dude, I feel real relaxed. Talk show. Yeah, so this is really good. So, I was thinking, like I always do, it's like, see, when did I meet Anne? And it was... So you were a new bartender. You were out in the deck, and of the Hideaway. Where else? And I go up to the bartender, the new bartender. And they say, "Hey, this is Anne. This is our new bartenders." And I'm like, "Ah, great, cool. Where'd you come from and everything?" And she goes, "Gibraltar." And I said, "Gibraltar." I said, "I didn't even know they had like housing on that. I thought it was a rock." Do you remember that?
Yes. You're like, "Did you like it? How was it?" I think, "Well, that's why I came back here." I said, "No, I wasn't really thrilled."
And then all of a sudden she looked at me and she says, "The restaurant in Lancaster." I'm like, "Oh, that Gibraltar. Jeez. Whatever happened to that place?" Didn't last very long after you left.
I think they moved off Oregon Pike or Lidditz Pike, one of those, but I haven't been back.
Yeah, so, man, we were really sorry to leave the Hideaway when you left the Hideaway as general manager there. But so the next time, I see you, you've got two girls, right?
Yep.
How are they? What are they doing right now?
Oh, the big one's 3, so she's in and out of the terrible 3 phase. Mostly sweet. The little one's taken up to 4 and 5 steps now, so she's cool. 11 months, so we're going to be on the move soon.
So we've talked before, and I kind of like said, "Hey, what are you into these days?" And you said integrative nutrition, and I was like, "Wow!" So my mind started. So I'm not doing any research on it, right? I'm just trying to figure out in my mind. I wonder what that involves, So then when we saw each other at Tim and Taylor's wedding, which was such a cool wedding, I said, "Man, we should talk about it on my podcast." I just love talking to people about things that I'm not quite sure about. So based on that, I didn't do a hell of a lot of research. I was thinking in my mind, okay, because I said, maybe you could help me with my diet or my nutrition. And I said, and I thought in my mind, I wonder if that applies to like cyclists or other endurance athletes, or is it just the general population? So what I did was I thought, well, let me Google it and see what happens, right? So the first thing that comes up, and you already know this, right, is the Integrative Nutritional Institute of New York City.
That's where my certification's from.
Okay, so that's pretty much all they said. It wasn't like there were various connected schools or more of a general, maybe there is, and I lost it now, so it doesn't matter because you can fill in the blanks. So let's start from the beginning. How did you get interested in it? Did you go up there and study? And then, basically a thumbnail sketch of what it means to all of us.
Well, I've been interested in nutrition since college. I just took a course and fell in love with it, just realizing how much food can impact simple little health things. But by that point, it was too late, and I thought, well, I'm not going to restart school. And fast forward to a few years ago when a coworker was talking how she saw an integrative nutritionist. And my same thing was, what's that? What does that even mean? So I started Googling what it is and found that school. There are a few others, but that was the most well-rounded.
They seem to be the most prominent.
Yeah, definitely. But I got my certification and here we are. But so integrative nutrition, I like to look at it like puzzle pieces. So you're taking all these puzzle pieces of what you think your different ailments could be or why you're feeling this way. And instead of saying, well, I have headaches and that's isolated to just because my body says we're supposed to have headaches, and I have stomach aches just because that's what it is, but put everything together. Why is your blood sugar all over the place? Does that have to do with your headaches or your stomach aches or your knee pain? So I kind of try and put the puzzle pieces together because some doctors don't do that, especially if they're all specialized and you're seeing a bunch of different specializations. It seems like none of them agree. And that's just not knocking doctors because they're great. But a lot of my clients, I have to see this doctor for this, but they're giving me this medication who this doctor says I shouldn't be taking, but then they give me this, and it's just all these.
That seems to be a predominant theme. Everyone tells me stories like that, and I experience it myself, where, you're right, everybody's got to be a specialist for good reason, but then there's nobody that looks at the whole picture. Certainly not from a nutrition standpoint, maybe from a health standpoint, but then what we're saying here, what us endurance athletes always knew, is that there's a real strong link between nutrition and health. And so, so then that makes all the sense in the world. So then, do you start off working with somebody to first analyze what the heck their issues are and what they're eating? And do you try to connect dots? How does that process go down?
So I have an extensive health history form that I asked to fill out ahead of time. And I just study it. It's like a test. I study what you typically eat, what you used to eat, even as a child, to see if that's carried over into something, what medications you've taken over the years, what supplements, just a whole list of, do you have different kind of pains or dizziness, are your coordination lacking or balance? 4 pages worth of questions. And then I try and see what your goals are and what might have been stopping you from reaching those goals. And it does relate to endurance, if that's your goal, is to maximize your athletic ability.
So I guess it would relate to energy. So basically it's true for everybody. It just depends on, everybody wants to eat better and have more energy, right? So it doesn't matter if you're up here as an endurance athlete or you're just,
trying to,
everybody can seek improvement. So I would think that, but I don't know. I mean, what kind of a food on a 0 to 100%? And this may vary from person to person, obviously, but in general, what are you looking at? Are you looking at a third, and a third? Or are you looking like more of a protein? Like I lend myself more to a protein, fat burning diet. So in general, is that in the back of your mind? And how do you let that sort out over 100%?
Yeah. That's really hard to say because everyone's different and it's such a general
Plus
blanket statement.
Plus you got vegans or vegetarians.
Yeah. But protein, very important.
Like at least 40% or so, I would think. 30, 40%.
20 to 40. And then you have fat, which a lot of people are scared of, but you definitely need that. Your brain needs that.
Need those good
nothing
fats,
else. Yeah. And then carbohydrates, which is the scary word nowadays with all these low carb things. And people can't have carbs, but you need carbs or else you won't make it half a mile if you cut carbs for you cyclists.
Yeah, I do that all the time. If I have too many carbs, I bonk and I just don't do well.
But too little.
But too little, then the same thing. So when I try to cut weight, I go serious protein, fat, protein. Then all of a sudden I bonk in another way because of what you just said, carbo. So yeah, it's a balance. So then do you organize a whole diet or do you come in mainly and go, let's try a little tweak here and a little tweak there? Is that more like what the integrative part is?
Well, it is. For me, I see what first we can add in. And I don't want to scare people and say, oh, you can never have this
that's
and
not
this
going to
ever
work
again.
For most people. They're like, no, I ain't doing that.
No. So you start by adding in some things first. Like, what are you missing? Are you missing these greens? Do you need some eggs in your life? What is it? And then we do start with eliminations because every single person I've seen so far has some sort of issue where we should start seeing what food groups might not be best for their body. But it's just one at a time, never an all or nothing. And it's not a boot camp. This is, we're working together. You pick what should start with, and then
I see some of those recipes. They look delicious.
Yeah.
And is that how the tie-in comes with Greystone Nutrition?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I try to avoid gluten unless it's like beer, and it's hard to. But
right. No, all of us are in that same boat, which was another thing I wanted to ask you about. It's like you I'm sure integrative. I thought in my mind, this is another one of my definitions. I said, you've got to be able to integrate nutrition for when you go to the hideaway or go out to dinner. because you're doing all these things, but then there you may not have as much control, and plus you're tempted by things on the menu.
Yeah.
So, so if you have, so what I'm guessing is if you have a general integrative kind of a thought process going into a structured outdoor meal, I mean, you know, eating away from home and eating at a restaurant, then you can kind of work some of your thoughts in, right? Is that what you're telling people? Again,
Yeah.
they don't have to go right in and just order a salad with piece of chicken on the side or whatever.
I think that's where the benefit from me working in restaurants for literally over half my life was I have an idea of what goes in, what's in all these bottled salad dressings, or what's in the marinades, what's in tortilla shells. So it helps me steer people to give them a generalized outline of what they could order, or what maybe they'd want to bring a salad dressing from home to order something. Or
plus those, like, for example, you mentioned tortilla, soft tortilla, man, they're loaded with, right.
It's a paragraph.
So everyone goes, get a wrap, it's healthier. It's like, yeah, you might be better off just getting bread.
Get the bread. Honestly, it is. There's less ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah, the wraps aren't all they are cracked up to be.
No. And it's funny because that was the big thing a few years, well,
yes.
I mean, it still is. People think it's healthier, but it's not. It's really not. Really get the bread.
Right. So in general, you know, we used to always joke about it. You got to eliminate white death, and that would be white sugar, white flour, and yeah. So is that still, well, and dairy, which they've thrown in there. I've gone through phases in my life where I've kind of cut back on all those. But now I eat all those things, but I don't necessarily eat them like every meal all the time. And I don't seem to have a problem. Although I noticed if I eat a lot of gluten, my inflammation in my joints, my knees and stuff ride, and I can tell, like if I do like a sub or a big pizza or something, and I'm like, the whole time I'm eating it, I'm not enjoying it because I realize
you think in your mind what's going to happen.
This isn't good. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll try it one more time. And then the next day, my knees, and I'm like, why does everything hurt so much today on the bicycle? And I'm like, it was that pizza. So, I mean, how do you deal with the guilt thing with people? And you say, yeah, you should probably quit eating pizza so much. That's a tough one.
Because those words don't come out of my mouth. That's a very much let people. We do the eliminations, but here's a list of things we're going to eliminate, or we should. You choose the order. You choose if you want to do it completely, which, I mean, you should eliminate those things 100% for a few weeks. But then you add it in to see what happens. I think 100% of my clients so far have been dairy. Dairy is, after about 3 days of no dairy, pants are looser. Yeah. You can see it in their face, their neck. And then they try it again, and it's not necessarily a big change like gluten, but you just feel different. But gluten is another big one where, like me, myself, if I eat pizza, my right knee is achy the next day.
Yeah. Okay. Like, my back
or
kills
my right
me.
shoulder, and I didn't do anything. So, yeah, but with cyclists, I think that with the nutrition, you need to know what you need to fuel your body, and also see if there is something that might help you cut out something a little bit. You said white sugar, white flour.
Yeah.
Those are big ones. But there are so many things you can substitute that you won't be missing out on. And also figure out the carb load and the protein, what's necessary for you to sustain those hours and hours of biking that some of you do.
Yeah, so do you count calories? Do you know what the calorie intake? So you don't even worry about that.
I don't.
What is like a normal daily thing? It's like 2,000,
1,800 to 2,200 for just moderate activity.
Because I know, like, when you look on Strava, you know, they tell you that you burn this many calories. It might be 1,000 calories or whatever. That's over and above your maintenance calories. And that you need to be clear on that. Because if you look at that, you go, well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, most people look at a lot of trendy training narrative that goes on is about maybe 70 to 80 to 90 grams of carbs per hour when you're working out. And that would translate to about 3 times as many calories. That would be like maybe 300, 350 calories per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But that's something, and that would be a client to client in general. No, I don't encourage that because most people are already obsessed with what they're putting in their mouth. And if I eat that, what's going to happen? Am I being bad? So I don't want to create another obsession by doing that. But in that case, I would have to see exactly what your activity is, because there are specific carbs and proteins that you should be having before, during, and especially after to recover. Your body needs that. You need, again, it's these carbs, which maybe endurance athletes aren't as afraid of, but in general, carbs are bad now, and it's just the type that goes in that is bad.
So here you have in general, like a majority. I don't know how many people suffer from diabetes, but it's usually onset late in life, and it's usually associated with obesity a little bit, but not always. But it's also associated with a high carb diet leading into that. Would you say that's a truism? And do people come to you with diabetes? And then, so what kind of general recommendations do you give them?
In general, lower the carbs.
Lower the carbs.
Because it's the sugars. It seems people are doing the muffin or bagel for breakfast with cream cheese, which that's not carb, but the bread, and then you have the tortilla wraps with different things. Well, okay, right here's all these carbs that you should need to watch out for, and instead replace them with vegetables, which are still carbs, but not all these processed.
Right. So you do a lot of switches and a lot of switching to people. So like, if I could say, white bread or whole wheat bread, because there's all that lectin controversy raging, which is another thing. So which one would you recommend, or does it depend?
I would say the whole grains if you're going to do that. Just more nutrients.
Aside from the whole lectin thing.
Yeah, more nutrient dense in general.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to wrap my mind around because I too have been in I don't really tend to do grains in general. They don't make me feel great. But some people need them. And it's the quality that you're putting in. But people with diabetes or pre-diabetes, you can just replace some of those things, swap your whole grains.
And then it starts to make a difference. A couple of guys I ride with were in that state, and they were healthy to begin with, but they said, hey, you're bordering on pre-diabetic condition.
And you can change that around
and that's what
quickly.
They did. Yeah, and they just changed certain things in their diet and focused a bit more, and they were able to curb that. And their numbers came back down into a decent realm.
And that would probably be really tricky if you have pre-diabetes or diabetes and you're also an endurance athlete.
It is.
Because of having to keep your blood sugars balanced with sugars, but you don't want to just eat, cookies and sodas. You need quality.
Do you do any testing on like micronutrients in your body, like what you might be lacking or I see some people do that nowadays, or is yours strictly based on observation?
Based on observations. Almost all my clients give me their blood work for me to look over. Yeah,
like cholesterol and all that.
And
good
if they
stuff.
do their thyroid testing, I'd take a look at that too, because there's some levels that are normal and acceptable. The doctor will say that's fine, or too high or too low. But
thyroid's another one of those things that's really important in your metabolism, but yet it's like for men, the prostrate's 9 times out of 10 is going to be a problem for men. And so what I'm understanding is that your thyroid is also one of those things that as you get older, it definitely doesn't work as well. I mean, obviously so many things aren't, but the thyroid then starts to not produce as much whatever it is that enhances your metabolism. And therefore, you tend to put on weight as you get older because of that also, not to mention all the other different things that are going on. So the thyroid seems to be also one of those things that's like, it's hard to, like, how do you supplement around a slowly non-functioning as well thyroid, which you're going to have to deal with. I think that's why a lot of people gain weight, or no? I mean, one of the reasons.
Well, like you said, things just start to shut down, but you can prolong that. Your thyroid needs the folic acid, the B vitamins.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, all these.
Like I get a B12 shot now about every couple of weeks. I just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why not? But that's part of the metabolism mystery that you start not having. So you would say, look at folic acid, build that up, get more B12 food sources into your diet.
Yeah, and that's really easy to do. That's pretty much just your dark leafy greens, the spinach, the kale, collards. Just add those to everything. That's what I pretty much do now. Add a handful of kale or spinach to anything I cook, and
yeah, that's so cool.
There you go. It's and I think that's also what I help people do is realize when your doctor says, "Well, you're pre-diabetic. Take this pill." Say, "Give me 90 days
first."
Yeah, just give me, or even 60 days. You can, and they're good. Almost all of my, I think the fastest one that's turned that around was 4 weeks. But typically 6 to 8 weeks.
That's good to hear and good to
You're
know.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, good stuff. So when you engage with, like, if I was to come to you and ask you for some help and some advice, that process, besides the four-page questionnaire going into it, so then how long do you normally maintain this kind of relationship to get these suggestions workable into someone's diet? How long do you work with them integratively till you start seeing a change, and then they kind of go, I think I got this, thank you, I'm kind of on the right path now? Is that the kind of way it goes?
Yeah, I start with 8 weeks and do 45-minute sessions each week. But that's what that questionnaire is ahead of time, so we can get our groundwork down.
Yeah.
So we can hit the ground running right out from session 1.
No wasted time.
I don't want to do that.
So do you do like FaceTime? Or?
Yeah, the health coaching is virtual.
Yeah.
Just seem, I mean, there's no need to.
I had a coach for a while. It's really important, even though I knew what this person wanted me to do and had a general idea, but it was just the fact of every week checking in and saying, okay, did you do this? Good boy. and get a nice attaboy, yeah. So you're basically coaching in nutrition. Yeah,
and I use a platform that has like a chat feature. So I always tell them, if you want to eat this cookie, send me a little message, and I'll say, walk away, get out of the kitchen, or just, hey, I see this ingredient on a label. What's that mean? So. I don't like to keep people hanging. I just want to.
Yeah,
I'm here for you, like through this journey.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Like this morning, this guy we ride with, Andrew, he brought over a bunch of Milky Ways and stuff. He works at M&M Mars, and I woke up this morning depleted from the weekend, and I just came down and I had some coffee, and I was looking in the refrigerator, and there was a Milky Way, and a Snickers. And I couldn't resist. I thought, let me just take one bite.
And then what?
I ended up wolfing the whole thing down with coffee, and then I'm pissed at myself. I'll be pissed the rest of this day until I go out for a ride. But like right then, I should have been, and here's the problem.
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a Three Musketeer and a Milky Way?
No.
It's the layer of caramel. On the Milky Way. The Three Musketeers, just nougat.
Oh, okay.
How do you deal with the girls, or just one girl at this point, but like when she starts to want to eat like sugar all the time?
Well, she knows it's a treat. It's there in the. Well, actually, I don't even know if we have any of that stuff in the house right now.
That's one way to deal with it.
We just don't, but. She gets a little amount. Like, she loves mint chocolate chip ice cream. So
yeah,
but she's actually really good at regulating herself. If we give her a bowl, she doesn't finish it all the time.
Sounds better than I.
Nice. Yeah, because kids know what their bodies need, and sometimes she just wants a rice cake, or sometimes she wants an apple, and it's like where did you lose that as an adult? Where it's just like, I really need that Milky Way, but do you?
It's because we're tortured by society
Yeah.
for the rest of our lives. Once we leave the comforting our arms of our parents, and then we go out in the real world, and we go, this sucks sometimes. And then it's like, I need a beer. I need a Milky Way. And that's all there is to it. That'll get me through to the next problem.
If you just tap into that, like, do you need it? I don't know.
I know I
think
do a lot.
do.
You know, we were talking about grains earlier. I do a lot better on rice. I just do. My body wants it. I love it. I can just keep eating it. It doesn't do good. I eat pasta once in a while. It doesn't do good with that anymore. But then I had some rice pasta. That was pretty cool. So anyway, when you said no grains, rice is kind of an exception to that, wouldn't you think? It seems like it works for me.
Well,
and in the Peloton, all those guys, they make custom rice cakes, because they can get them down after like 7 hours on the bike, where other gels and bars and things they can't quite digest, but everybody likes the rice cakes.
Mm-hmm. Rice is a good one. That's something I was going to say earlier, that for endurance, white rice is great because it's just a straight carb, basically.
Yeah, it sits so well in my stomach too. And to your point about bloating, like it doesn't seem to do that.
Well, and that's a one ingredient food item, where what's pasta? That's kind of like, pasta's
during.
Well, you don't know what it is. It could be grains plus eggs,
right,
a bunch of flours plus. So
that general theory holds true. The less ingredients in any given food, the better it is for you.
And I always recommend, when starting out looking at labels, like try for 5 or less. Because more than that, do you even know what those words are? What are
Right. Good stuff.
When you have an ingredient that's 14 letters long,
some years
ago,
that
even mean?
Some years ago, I was all into this book called For Your Blood Type.
Why am I talking with you about that?
I think so. I think we did have that discussion, which was, there's A, there's AB, and of course the positive and the negative, and then there's B, and then there's 0 antigens, which is O. And so went into this whole, guy wrote a couple of different books, can't remember the author's name, and it was basically that different blood types have, in other words, the theory goes like this. So if you were in Europe, let's say, and you were coming out of the Ice Age, and it was primitive Europe. There was no agriculture going on. All you had was like meats and roots and berries and fish. So it was like type O, even to this day, carries that genetic makeup with them, which is they can eat meats a lot better. And then, then there was type Bs, are mostly Orientals, and they pretty much had rice over there. And so they tended to do better with rice, so on and so forth. So does integrative medicine touch on the blood types at all?
It does a little. We covered that at IIN. I haven't really followed along with it myself, but it is interesting.
It kind of disappeared off the syndicated map there for a while. No one talks about that anymore. And everyone's talking about nutrition, but they don't talk about the blood type thing. But anyway.
But they said A is for agriculture, which is what I'm an A. So I mostly a vegetarian.
That's it.
Mostly vegetarian diet. Yeah, O is the oldest.
So it's meats
and
yeah. And then
no grain type thing, and then B is the both.
Yeah, so the blood type thing is interesting, and you guys should take note of that, because it's a whole nother direction to take your nutritional, and it kind of worked for me, because I kind of stick to it, but it's easy. O is easy to stick to. O is a cheeseburger, basically. It's primarily protein, red meat. O is a cheeseburger, type O blood. Anyway, before we get into this next subject, I wanted to talk about cheeseburgers. And so this is something that I do, and I recommend everybody should do it. I get extra lettuce, as you know, or spinach if they have it. I'll get double extra lettuce and then spinach, raw spinach on the top. And so, first of all, not including the spinach, but the lettuce is free. It's a no-brainer. Why not get more? And then when the cook hears that, they're like, extra lettuce, I'll show this guy. Or Matt, he just loads it on. So it makes it all crunchy and juicy, and it's getting more, micronutrients into my body, plus it's hydration. So here's the deal. I want everybody out there to start ordering extra lettuce on their sandwiches or cheeseburgers, and then take the top bun off. And then you're fine, because you can still grip with all the extra lettuce that's on top. Now, I've been doing that for quite a while. And then you think about that over a course of a year. Every cheeseburger that I eat, I take the top bun off, get the extra lettuce, and then envision that in a pile of realize all the white death that I've eliminated, and yet my satisfaction for eating cheeseburger hasn't been diminished. Maybe a little bit, but not really. So anyway, okay.
Well, that's why what I encourage is just little changes. It doesn't have to be, I'm never eating pizza again. It's just
get lots of veggies on it.
Or try.
Just get lots of veggies.
What can you have instead of just sometimes, or do you need to eat pizza every single week? Can it be just once a month?
Then when I'm really bad, I love Sicilian, and then so I get Sicilian, and I'm like, this is really ridiculous. Look at all that bread.
Especially that kind of dough, because the dough that pizza places use is high gluten. So now you're not just taking just a regular old gluten. Now you're just extra.
So
that's
you're
why
right. You talked about your stomach and the way it feels on rice in the morning, as opposed to after you've been eating a bunch of bread and gluten and certain types of pizza. Think about it. So you're eating that with cheese like all weekend long, watching football and stuff. Then basically, you've got a basically bun in the oven, right? Because it goes down in there and it's still creating stuff and it's still bloating. I swear to God, it's still percolating all the way through your system and expanding. Anyway.
Yeah, it might be. Well,
that's why your stomach's all bulbous. And so it might have something to do with the gallons of beer that we drink.
I don't know. But if you're not exercising and carbs are energy. So if you're just literally consuming energy and just
not using it,
what happens? Where's it going to
be a problem?
It's got to go somewhere.
Right,
so, it does. The places you don't want it to.
We always get together and ride Thursday night, mountain bike, Thursday, most of the time. And Sunday, if we're not doing an event, then we're riding mountain bike again. And so, as it turns out, the first thing you get back is, you start drinking beer, because that's why you rode to begin with. So then you drink beer, and then we start grilling hot dogs, because they're right there and easy, And so, there's been periods of time over the last several decades that I've been alive where all of a sudden the news media, the health food people get in and start really coming down on hot dogs. And, you'll get leukemia and your chances for this and that are so much higher. And so then that'll fade and then goes away and everybody forgets and they just enjoy. So then recently, I don't know if you would agree with this, but there's been more, I've seen syndicated narratives and documentation about, hot dogs, they're so bad for you. Maybe because it's the summer season.
I think, is it a Harvard study or it's an Ivy League school? Yeah, you lose 34 minutes off your life for every hot dog you eat.
Right. So
how do you know that?
so then somebody was telling me, I think it was Nate, we were talking about micromorbs. Familiar with that?
No.
So some scientists got together and they attached a unit of morbidity for every food or activity like exercise that you endeavor in. For example, one beer a day had a plus micromorbs. In other words, that added so much time to your life.
Okay.
And then
that's one.
But then the graph went like this when you started doing more than one beer, and I was like, oh man. So now that's another guilt thing. It's like that first beer, and now, that was good. I really feel good. And then the second one, it's like, don't do it. You're starting. So anyway, moral of the story is I drink an 11.5 absolutely, because I know I'm only going to drink one beer. So I drink 11.5 to make sure I get there where I need to be. So, but yeah, so like hot dogs had, like you said, had like negative, like every hot dog. And I'm thinking,
like,
dude, we're all doing it. Like three hot dogs a week on Thursday and Sunday. Everybody's doing it after all that healthy riding and stuff. And so we already said that 1 or 2 beers can be very beneficial for stress reduction, and it's good hydration. It's a good way to recover. It's a good recovery drink.
Well, and you need, most things say a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein as recovery for endurance athletes.
Yes.
So beer, carbs. So is that like 3 beers to 1 hot dog?
So
I don't know.
at least the raw chemistry is sort of correct.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And then there's the other thing about, that's about 3-to-1 or so. That's good. That's good.
Well, yeah, it depends. The carbs, I don't know what. No.
That's why chocolate milk is so good, for example, because even though it's dairy, but they always say it's a great carb because there's a lot of carbs, but there's 3-to-1. I usually, when I'm trying to cut back and lean out, I go to 2-to-1. So every ingestion I make, I try to make 2 proteins to 1 carb. So that's how if I look at a can of tuna and it's 20, then I figure how much bread I can use or whatever. Yeah. Or like whenever, Deb will tell you this, whenever I get sandwiches wherever, I always get extra meat and extra lettuce, depending, But the point of the lettuce is we already went through that. But then the extra meat always increases your ratio.
Yeah.
So it would almost be better to get a double or a triple cheeseburger, a double cheeseburger than it would be a regular one if you're going to eat both sides of the bun, because you're going from that, instead of 4 or 5-to-1, in your case 3-to-1, and I'm thinking 2-to-1. That's why I get coleslaw or pickle instead of chips, because I kind of keep that ratio. So I do that. I try to 2-to-1, 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 almost every ingestion, except on weekends.
Yeah.
And Thursday night I stick to it because you're right. That's 3-to-1. If you drink a beer and eat a hot dog, it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
From the pure just fuel aspect. So anyway,
but that would be something like I can help with is the count, because we've had a lot of people will talk about carbs and it's like, well, what's a carb? You hear about a carb, but what's a carb? I mean, it's just bread. Like people think, okay, it's just bread, so don't eat bread. Yeah, but there's carbs in anything that has fiber or starch or sugar that's carb.
But broccoli's really good too.
Yeah.
I was amazed. I think broccoli's 1-to-1. It's like 1 carb to 1 protein. It is a high in protein. So if you do like, Chinese, but if you do like rice and broccoli and chicken, that's banging. And that always sets well with me. And that's almost, depending on how much rice you eat, but that's easy 2-to-1 because broccoli is so high. Good.
Yeah. And all the leafy greens also have the protein in it too, which people think them proteins and you have to do beans, but beans are a food group that don't always sit well with everyone.
Right.
Myself,
and they're high in lectins and high in carbs, and
there's a lot of ways around it. Protein.
Yeah. So I was thinking too, some foods that you can always get going to the bar, right? Going to the hideaway, and you're like, okay, I'm all hungry and shit. And it's the weekend. Just calm down. Let's do a couple of things. And one thing that I think you can always get is hummus, right? Because that's chickpea and sesame seed, and then celery, and you get it with celery and
probably carrots
and even broccoli. You can always get a hummus thing, usually on most menus. So I always say, if you're going to get an appetizer, try to defer to that because that's high in protein, and plus you get the fresh veggies with it. Or like when you're getting wings, try to get extra. Like that's another thing. I go, can I have extra celery?
Yeah.
And try to eat like 2 celery stalks for every wing instead of 2 wings for every celery stalk. Am I getting too creepy with all that?
No, not at all.
But that's the way
But people don't think about that. I mean, that's kind of what I help you with. Like, it's
right. So how we talked about the guilt. That's a big thing because you want to enjoy it. Now all of a sudden you don't want to go to you and get done with your coaching session and then go, oh, she told me not to eat that pizza.
Yeah.
So and then when you're eating it, then you're feeling doubly shitty because you shouldn't be doing something. So what I try to do is take the food that you're going to get at the restaurant and say, I really want a cheeseburger. or I really want to get wings, and then say, how can I modify that just slightly so it won't carry the shitty guilt with me?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm getting creepy with all that. It's like people say, just eat what you want. And it's like, well, it's not quite that simple for me. And maybe when you're younger, but as the older I get, it's not quite that simple because there's all kind of implications.
Yeah, but and also if you want to achieve a goal, a certain amount of hours worth of riding, like you can't just eat whatever you want and hope that it's okay.
And you can go in and get your favorite foods. You just got to alter shit a little bit. Mm-hmm. For example,
pay attention.
Get extra lettuce on your cheeseburger and try getting rid of the bun. And then if you got a counter on your phone or something, count that. And then by the end of the year, it's like, Bill, look at this, all this white death that I did not eat, and it's so good.
Same thing, or just saying no cheese. Like some people just, if you're looking at calories or fat, like unhealthy fats, just try to say no cheese on that cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I mean, not that cheese is necessarily bad, but the shiny cheese is bad.
Right.
Not every restaurant you go to has the highest quality and local, cows.
And hard cheese better than soft cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So anyway, that's our that's our joint advice to all you out there is before you're just ready to order wings, just stop and go, can I get an extra order of celery with those wings? Can I get extra lettuce on my cheeseburger and stuff like that? Or
a side salad or something.
There's going to be a phenomenon now in this immediate area where everybody, what's all these people ordering extra lettuce for on all their sandwiches? Who started that crap? I want to hang that dude.
I hope so. I hope if that's the worst thing that happens from this.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we were having that discussion about hot dogs, and you said, well, and apparently you've got some suggestions for us here.
Yeah.
So we can kind of do what I was just talking about. We still enjoy our hot dogs.
But just make good choices.
What do you got going on here?
So I have your regular old ballpark, which I don't know what kind you get. I don't know. But I'm assuming, most people don't like, oh, that sounds good. I know what it is. I'm going to get it.
Right.
But then there's these other Applegate brand, which is, they have organic and they have non-organic, but they're still uncured. No sugar added. Humanely raised grass-fed beef or pork if you get the pork or turkey. But I was just looking at the ingredients.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, everything on here is things sea salt, spices.
Sea salt
garlic,
better than regular salt.
Yeah, paprika, celery. Okay, we all know.
Oh, there's celery in there?
Yeah.
Get out.
You know everything.
Shit,
there you go.
Celery. Damn. Yeah. We'll be eating the shit out of those.
Yeah, and then you have these, which these aren't as bad as some of the other less quality brand, but these have potassium lactate, hydrolyzed beef stock, natural flavor, which we don't know what that is, sodium phosphate, sodium diacetate. Whatever.
I used to know guys I used to be a bartender long time ago. I used to know guys that worked down at Kunzler's and they worked on the hot dog machine lines, and they would just eat them. Like they'd be all hungry and shit and hungover, and they'd eat them right off the line. I was like, oh man, I go, how many do you eat? And they're like, oh dude, 12 a day. I'm like, oh dude.
Yeah. Oh, and I missed out the third ingredient, corn syrup. So you're looking at all these ingredients, I don't even know what some of these are. But then look at the sugars, the calories.
So in comparison for this one, it's 7 grams of protein to 0 grams of carb.
Yeah, and these are 6 grams of protein to 4 carbs.
Ah, dude,
so
that's
if
incredible.
You're looking at the carb protein, maybe, but
this is the right ratio. That blows your whole ratio, especially when you put a bun around that thing.
Yeah, and then look at sodiums.
Oh man,
the sodium, the calories. I mean, these alone have 170. I think those are 110.
There's no need for carbs in a hot dog. There just isn't.
No.
Because you got the bun.
No, but also my thinking was because you're coming back from a ride and having beer, which is fine, but that's a carb, and then your protein. Why are you having? I mean, why is there sugar in here? So,
dude, Dylan, all you guys that are buying hot dogs, James, I know you're out there and I got to do the same thing. Applegate and suggestion Applegate.
Yeah.
Now that is what I thought was a pure expression of integrative nutrition. Just that right there. You're integrating. You're going, hey, I know you guys are going to eat hot dogs, but try this. And I'd be like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because I remember when we discussed it, you're like, well, you're not going to like this very much. And it's, well, no, you can have all these things. Just be mindful of
I can't
what's
believe
in
there's 4
them.
grams of carbs in there.
Vegan hot dogs, which have come a long way.
There are, but yeah. But again, look at the ingredients because a lot of that
they're higher in carbs. Then you get away from that 2-to-1 ratio. You got to be real careful.
But in a lot of vegan processed things have a lot of chemicals, and again, do you know what all those words are that are in there? It's not like it's just broccoli and beans in a hot dog. It's all kinds of stuff to make it stick together, make it taste like a hot dog.
I didn't always ride bikes, so like I was like a softball player and stuff for a long time. I never even started riding bike till I was like 36, 38. And during that time, that's when I started to look at my weight, because it was like about 20 pounds heavier than it is now. And I started looking at some of these various nutritional plans for cyclists. And then I realized that they were all higher in protein, lower in carbs, except during the ride, etc. So they were different. And so that was the first time that so 0 to age 38, I was aware of what a carb was and so on and so forth, but I never focused on the ratio. And then I started to focus on the ratio on every ingestion, and I've been doing it ever since. And I try to do a 2 or 3 to 1 in carbs. Like if I look at a drink in the shelf, and I'm going into that, and that looks pretty good, antioxidants, everything, and I'll see like 48 to 1, 48 grams of carbs, so 1 gram of carb. Or like yogurts is when I started on yogurts, right? And this was long before Greek style yogurt. That's how old I am. So you just go in and they had yogurt, and I'd look at one, and it would be, seriously, it should be at least 1 to 1. And now, of course, Greek style is more protein than carbs, plus the probiotics. But I would look at it, and some yogurts were like 30 to 40 to like 9 grams of protein, and I'd be like 4 to 1, no way. And so some foods you can really look at, and you're appalled at the 50, 60, 70 grams of carbs. It's like huge to very little protein. And so, not to be a label reader, but that's one thing that I quickly do almost just out of habit. Every food that I buy at the grocery store, I look at the ratio of protein to carbs and make sure it's at least 3 or 4 to 1. If it's worse than that, I don't want it.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of people don't do. But I definitely, until you get the hang of it, start looking at everything you eat. Look at your pantry. Look at one of the most surprising things is beef broth or any of the broths and stocks. Look at those ingredients and look at the sugars that are.
Yeah.
Why do you need sugars in something you're going to make soup with or whatever? But, in a good way, another good thing to look at just sugars alone, because if you divide that number by 4, that's about how many teaspoons of sugar in a serving. Again, like a can of Coke I think it's 20 sugar packets in 1 can.
I know,
if you look at yogurts, unless you're doing the protein yogurts.
Right. And then, okay, here's another pet peeve, and we all do it. We all eat cereal, right? Most people eat cereal. And I can tolerate,
look at that.
I can tolerate Cheerios, right? Because it's oats. And besides rice, I think oats is the most generally healthy thing for everybody. It's got GLAs in it and all that crap, GLAs are hard to come by. Borage oil, oats, mother's milk, about the only places. Don't want to get creepy about that either, but my point is that you can really be amazed at the number of carbs that are in certain food groups that I always eat. And like peanut butter is another one. You can get peanut butter that's more, almost as much protein as carbs, or even more protein, or totally 4 to 1. And I'm like, whoa, that's a different. Now, okay, all the big peanut butter manufacturers are putting less sugar and all that.
I know.
But still, you got to look. And each label can be different. So getting back to cereal, for example, so I'll eat Cheerios, and I usually eat it with a high protein almond milk, which they have now. So I know that between the high protein almond milk, and I shy away from soy for obvious reasons, because I eat it in so many other areas. Anyway, and then I will put like a cereal in there like Cheerios, I'm almost 1-to-1. And I'm thinking of that the whole time I'm enjoying it. I'm like, I'm good. So the thing with Honey Nut Cheerios is I always like the Honey Nut better. And so I always go to pick up the Honey Nut and I look the difference. And like regular Cheerios is like 18 to 4, which, okay, not bad when you add the protein milk. We're good. But like Honey Nut goes clear up to like 30 something to less protein. It's like 33 to 1. And I'm like, no way. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And it's surprising, especially with having my girls. I really look at all the things that are recommended for kids, and then absolutely not. I mean, we give them whole grain Cheerios because those are about one of the lower ends. And those still have sugars, but the yogurt.
I even have a problem with pure Gatorade. I know a lot of fellow cyclists. We do like if we're going to do Gatorade because it's cheap and available, do half with water and half with Gatorade. Because if you look at the actual amount of sugar that's in Gatorade, you think it's a healthy drink. It's like, albeit it has the electrolytes. Like, I'm not doing that. Unless, of course, it's the end of a long ride and a long day, and that's something different. So suffice it to say that integrative nutrition would also take into account that general kind of a nutritive guide about make sure you look at the amount of carbohydrates you're getting in that food and try to keep it under that, at least 3 to 1. Now, fats is a whole nother subject.
It is. And even the carbs, because, again, I don't like, most people just don't know what to do with carbs in general. So I don't ever like to say, well, look at a 3 to 1. I mean, you would understand, and maybe other athletes would too, but just in the general public, you'd think, what's that even mean? So just watch them.
Yeah.
And I think almost everyone can benefit by a low carb diet, but that doesn't mean like the keto stuff. That just means watch your white breads and
I don't
sugars. Watch your white sugar.
I went keto a little bit, but the thing of it is, it takes so long for your body to adapt to burn protein and fat. So it takes a while to get to that state, and then you just start eating some little carbs, and the body's like confused again. It's like, wait a minute, you told me we were going to be eating carbs and protein or fats and protein, and now you're switching gears on me. So it's hard to stay in that state.
Yeah,
I found it's a lot easier just to stay 3 to 1. I try to go for 2 to 1. I'm happy camper with that.
But you said fats, and again, because of what the 80s and 90s were fat's bad. Like, here we go. Now we have to change everyone's mindset. And
I can still remember my aunt and my mom, my aunts and my mom, and they'd sit around, after the holidays, and it's like, all right, you got to go on a diet.
Yeah.
Right.
Get your low-fat cookies and your low-fat
so they got
crackers.
so they came. Remember the Snackwell craze?
Yep.
So they were like, I'm like, what is this crap? And so they got all these cookies, and they're sitting around and they put, they go, look, it's fat free. And I look at it and there's like 1 million grams of carbs in there. And I'm like, dude, that's not, the fat's okay with you. But it's funny how people get certain things in their head due to mass marketing of said products like Snackwells.
Weight Watchers.
But they've changed, which is I'm kind of happy about. They've completely changed their program, so it's much more well-rounded and less just straight like fat cutting like it used to be.
Yeah, so now they're more protein.
Yeah, and protein, greens.
You and Dan, what's the most how do you get your high-quality protein into your diets mostly in any given week over a course of a week? I mean, a lot of eggs, et cetera.
Yeah, a lot of eggs. We buy Shop at Giant, so we get the Nature's Promise chicken, so better quality.
Yeah.
If we spend the money on the quality stuff, it's definitely the protein and organic veggies as much as you can. Yeah. So. Yeah,
and over a period of months and years, that some people say, well, that's a little more expensive, and it's like, yeah, but that pays off, man.
They're sales. I mean, you can get great chicken for $3.99 a pound. Just
how do you feel about diet soda? I usually always I don't drink much soda, but if I do,
I just think it's that aspartame stuff that's going to get you.
Yeah.
So I just.
Yeah.
No, soda water is about the soda you need.
Yeah.
So you can get, that's a hard one. A lot of people have a hard time with soda and diet sodas. It seems I mean, that just becomes addicting. And
They don't put on a restaurant menu, they don't put your carb to protein to fat ratios, do they? In any given meal.
Some places do. I think
sometimes they just put calories, places, but that doesn't help me as much because calories doesn't mean much to me. It's the quality of the calories, like whether it's protein or not. I wish they would do that, and for general, at least even estimate a certain meal.
I know, like corporate restaurants, you can get. I think Applebee's was a big one, and I think Chili's was big on saying that they have it available if you need it.
Yeah,
but like the Hideaway, you're not going to get that. They don't have that. Someone sitting there doing that for you.
I notice now too, like at Applebee's and corporate chains, franchises, they'll tend to say pick a protein, right? That's the new thing. And so, to your point earlier, you got all these people that never really separated in their mind what a carb and a fat and a protein is. And so, when it says pick your protein, they're like,
what's that? Yeah.
Mommy,
what do I choose?
Is pizza a protein? It starts with P. You'd almost be better off getting some meat on your pizza to increase the protein count for that ingestion. That's the way I look at it. And that's why also I would get a double cheeseburger if I can, because I'm increasing my ratio. I always try to keep my ratio of 2 to 3 to 1. And I don't know. I always wanted to ask you that. You can't really go wrong with that.
Not for if you're using that energy, then that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it just becomes the amount of quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's why we do the podcast. So we were talking off air. I'm going to talk out loud now on air. It's because as people go, why do you do this? And it's like, well, first of all, I do it because I can do it. That's mainly why I do most shit. But also, it gives me a chance to hook up with old friends and find out what they're doing in life. And then I learned something, and I just said to Anne, then like there's little suggestions, that I learned. So after a podcast, my life is a little bit different. And I like to think it's a little more improved because I learned something that I didn't quite know or, so what do you think of that, right? It's a good thing. So now I'm a little bit different. And so the guys on Thursday are going to be a little different now because we're going to start eating some organic, uncured hot dogs, man. So you see, we learned something today.
Yeah.
And so in my life, we've integrated a healthier hot dog into our Thirsty Thursday menu. So integrative nutrition has worked once again. But it was so good to talk to you, and we'll have to catch up again in a couple of years to see where this is all headed. I always like to say that with all of our podcast guests. So, so is there anything that, first of all, can you tell us how I can get involved with you and with Integrative Nutrition, how that folds into Greystone Nutrition?
So my business is the Greystone Nutrition, and you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. You can email me at ann@greystonnutrition.com to get more information. I just hope to help people in general.
Sounds like you already are changing a lot of lives, and a lot of times because we've been so focused on nutrition because you got to when you're going to ride 5-6 hours a day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't realize that other people don't necessarily focus on it that much because they don't have to. Like if I have a shitty diet for a couple days in a row, then my ride is disastrous.
Yeah.
But an average person, if they're just, going to work and walking a little bit or whatever, an average diet won't make their life disastrous for those brief periods of time. It may have a cumulative effect, and that's what we're talking about over a lifetime. But
I could even help someone who generally understands what you need to do to sustain your rides or your races, but have an actual meal plan, or here's what a day would look like post race, or a day would look like, during that day or during your race.
So that's something you would actually take their diet over 2 or 3 days
and say, maybe try this. Here's what,
and here's my recommendation. So you don't have to change anything, but try this,
just
try
tweak
that
a little bit, because I know I was researching just like again, carbs, we keep talking about it, but like carb loading. And in the past, I remember a high school football team would eat, like 4 plates of pasta, and that's what you do before the game. Like, you don't need that. You're like running for what, 5-second bursts at a time. Like,
It was totally the whole carb craze, and everybody was pasta loading and shit.
God.
I'd even go to big races, even in my day, like in the 80s and shit, 70s and 80s. I'd go to a big race or whatever, and they'd have pasta dinner the night before, and I'd be like, are you kidding me?
But I would just help people, no, let's not do that, but here's what you should be doing in order to
Someone who's not an
this.
endurance athlete would go, are you going to load up with carbs tonight? And I'm like,
no. Need that. No, but
no, I'm probably going to eat salmon, dude.
Yeah, for you guys and the gals doing this, it's you need to sustain it, and which people don't understand, or like what veggies might be better if you don't want to just eat bread. What vegetables?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you eat a higher protein diet, you need to drink more water because it takes more water to break apart protein than it does carbs.
That does have, and you burn more calories. Yeah. Eating protein, but almost everyone can benefit from higher protein.
How about intermittent fasting? What's your thoughts on that?
That really hasn't proven to be better or worse than just a general low carb diet or like the paleo or so the idea is that you will be in a calorie deficit because you're not eating for 16 hours a day or a couple days, depending on which style you do. But then you have to be careful when the times when you are eating, how many calories you're eating, because you don't want to not eat and then consume 3,000 calories in 8 hours, because that'll defeat the purpose of the fat loss and the body composition change. So you have to really pay attention. Again, it's not just, I'm just not going to eat today.
I think the one thing, I've delved into that a little bit and have had good results if I need to lose weight in a week or so. And it kind of does toward your metabolism. But if you get through the first couple of days and you don't eat, say from 6 at night till 9 in the morning or even noon the next day, which is not that awfully hard to do. Like if you get up, you're sleeping most of the time, and then you get up and you have coffee or something, and you can hold off till lunch. But after that first couple of days, to your point about engorging on 3,000 calories, my stomach tends to shrink a bit. And so it gets easier and easier for me not to eat. But anyway.
Yeah, it just depends on your goals. But
good stuff.
Again, I'd rather people maintain healthy eating throughout the day than obsess about, well, gosh, I have an hour yet.
How do you feel?
I have one more hour till I can eat again, and then you're going to eat.
How do you feel about, this is another kind of a thing that people get into a routine about, and I found it also to be better for me, is 5 or 6 smaller meals and portions rather than a traditional breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, I'm more about that too.
Yeah, cool.
Your body can only handle so many.
And it's
so
actually
many
more
so many
enjoyable.
Calories.
It's actually more enjoyable to have, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, rather than like sit down, not eat for a while, and then like have all this in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what about before bed? Carbs or protein or nothing? What do you do before bed? Do you eat a lot?
No, I don't. But I've gotten away from snacking a lot. If I do, make sure it's proteins.
Yeah.
More than, or if I eat fruit, make sure it's with protein and never just an apple by itself, because then that's a whole thing.
That's
with
why
your blood sugar.
Some traditional things that we see in combinations over our lives, like eat fruit and yogurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And granola has nuts in it, et cetera.
But just don't eat a bunch of grapes and then that's what it is. Like eat grapes and nuts or
fruit and cheese. And you often see a fruit and cheese plate. Again, what we're talking about, folks, is try to get your ingestions down so it's not just pure carbs, where it's a certain amount of protein in there with every ingestion. And that's why appetizers are good when you're drinking beer. Always like to try it, and protein better.
Yeah. And that's why wings aren't, the process of cooking the wings is not that great for you, but the wings themselves are actually not that bad of an idea.
Not that bad at all.
Or if you're doing like for your bike, post-ride thing, just
especially
bake
if you get the extra celery.
Or grill them or something, like if you can.
Yeah. Do you remember down before he sold it, down from like Leeds Bicycle Shop, down there on the left. He had the sandwich shop.
The brass rail or the
Yeah,
one
the brass
further?
rail before he sold it. But he used to do baked wings. And they were really expensive, but really, I like that idea. And I was going to say to you too, I think that meats, like chicken skin gets kind of a bad rap.
Depends where the chicken's from and what kind of chicken are you.
There you go.
What are you eating?
There you go. So anyway, that's kind of my expectations of integrative nutrition.
Yeah,
You've kind of
it's
answered
just
them all. It's just little tweaks, especially if you're someone like me that's got some general theories about my eating, and then just kind of bounce them off you and then go, yeah, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Why don't you try this? It's like, oh yeah. So what I'm suggesting is that everybody can make just small tweaks and not really go through like, oh, I got to go on a diet. You can never
eat this. Yeah, and that's what I like to show people is that it's easy. And I make it easy because there are so many swaps. It isn't just, that's it, never again. It's maybe try not eat it for a little bit and then see what happens when you do. Just see what happens, how you feel. But add all this other stuff in to kind of crowd out the not so great stuff.
So that's what's going through my mind as I'm sitting there drinking a beer and I have a menu in front of me and I'm trying to order out. I'm like, all right, how can I do this?
What can I have? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it usually involves some winces from, can I get extra lettuce on that? And can you put that on the side instead of potato chips, and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. But hey, seriously, I'm paying for it. And I'm suggesting to you that you do that over and over and over again. That it has a compounding effect that is, getting back to the micromorbs.
Mm-hmm. Let's look more into those exactly. But I've always wanted to open a restaurant that is like not advertised as being healthy, but was not really using too many, no gluten, little beans, little dairy, just like sneaky healthy. But so when you come there, you're eating healthy and you're not going to leave feeling like, oh, why did I just eat that? It'll just be.
And so here's the other thing I would encourage you to do is to have like smaller portions. Mm-hmm. And so instead of just getting one entree, why couldn't there be, get 2 entrees and they're both smaller? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. It's like, what are you suggesting? Right, it's like, I got to order 2 different things instead of one big thing.
Yeah.
Because it takes me forever on the menu now. It's like, takes me a beer and 2 wines or whatever just to figure out. It's like, can you do that and that and that? And
and then at that point, you're like, just give me the
just give me the pizza. Just give it to you. Well, they don't say they don't have spinach back there today. And I'm like, oh, God darn it. And then I have to start all over again. I'm like, I'm going to need another beer to get this done. So anyway, so good to talk to you. And we definitely got to catch up in a bit. So you guys know how to get a hold of Anne, and repeat that one more time.
So it's Greystone Nutrition is my business, and you can search on Facebook or Instagram or email Anne, ANNE, at greystonenutrition.com.
Yeah, and cool. And get going and, find out how you can just slightly improve your diet because you keep doing that over the course of your lifetime, and who knows?
Yeah, and I just want it's not scary and it's not hard. You just have to.
And it's not just a lifetime anymore. As I get older, I start saying it's not just, it's my health span. Mm-hmm. I want to live older, but I want to live healthier, older, and diet's a big part of that.
Yeah, well, I like this saying.
Nutrition.
It's what you put in your body is what you're going to get out of it. So if you're gonna put junk in, you can't really expect too much out of it. So gotta put the good stuff.
Junk in, junk out.
Yeah, good stuff in and good stuff out.
So good. Thanks for coming over. Great talking to you. This is very cool.
Yeah. And enjoy your hot dogs for those who are going to be there on Thursday.
Yeah. Well, the word will get out. All you guys pay attention. This is what you want to get. Okay. Mm-hmm.
They're more widely available now. I got those at Wegmans, but Giant has them. Whole Foods.
Yeah. Wegmans
BJ's.
is good.
I think. Yeah. Anywhere. Which is nice about these days.
I can't believe there's corn syrup in there. I didn't want to pay. I don't want to look at the ingredients of a hot dog, because I just don't. Because then I really want to enjoy it. Yeah, thanks. So good. I needed that. That's what an integrative nutrition has done, because I wouldn't do it on my own. I'm like, how dare you? Don't even look at the hot dog. I mean, I know it's all right, man. Josh, you got anything to add? Is there any questions you want to ask?
No.
You sure?
He said.
All right, brother.
Right then, yeah.
All right then.
Well, thank you.
Thanks all. It's a wrap. Peace out.